Marcus Chen stepped off the transport ship onto the dusty surface of Kepler Station, his corporate credit chip weighing heavy in his pocket. The artificial gravity felt different here on the frontier trading post, lighter somehow, as if even physics bent to accommodate the lawlessness that thrived in the outer rim territories. The slave markets of Kepler Station operated in broad daylight, a testament to how far humanity had fallen since expanding into the galaxy. What had started as exploration and colonization had devolved into exploitation and subjugation of alien species. Marcus had seen the reports, read the statistics, but standing here now, watching beings of various species being paraded in chains, made his stomach turn. He wasn't here by choice. Meridian Corporation had made that clear when they assigned him to this godforsaken outpost. As their new mining operations manager, he needed workers who could handle the brutal conditions of the asteroid belt extraction sites. The company's previous attempts with automated systems had failed spectacularly, and human workers couldn't survive the radiation levels long enough to be profitable. "First time at the markets?" asked a gravelly voice beside him. Marcus turned to see a scarred Terran merchant, his cybernetic eye glowing blue in the harsh station lighting. The man's smile revealed gold teeth that gleamed like warning beacons. "Unfortunately, yes," Marcus replied, trying to keep the disgust from his voice. He had to play the part of a corporate buyer, even if everything about this place made him sick. "Looking for anything specific? I got some fine Centauri specimens, real sturdy types, perfect for heavy labor." The merchant gestured toward a group of blue-skinned humanoids huddled together in a reinforced cage. Their large, sad eyes tracked Marcus's movement with a mixture of hope and terror. Marcus shook his head. The briefing materials had been specific about what kind of workers would be most effective in the asteroid mines. "I need something that can handle extreme environments. High radiation, low oxygen, variable gravity, and they need to be intelligent enough to operate complex machinery." The merchant's good eye lit up with avarice. You want Amazon stock. Tough as nails, those warrior women. Smart too, though they pretend otherwise. Follow me." They walked deeper into the market, past vendors selling everything from exotic pets to military-grade weapons. The air grew thicker with the smell of unwashed bodies and desperation. Marcus noticed how other buyers moved through the crowds, examining potential purchases like livestock. Some poked and prodded the captives, checking teeth and muscle tone. Others demanded demonstrations of strength or skill. The Amazon section of the market was different. Even in chains, the captured warriors maintained a dignity that seemed to intimidate both buyers and sellers. These weren't broken spirits waiting for rescue. They were predators temporarily caged, waiting for their moment to strike. "Here we are," the merchant announced, stopping before a specialized containment area. "Amazons from the warrior clans of Xerion Prime, caught during the last pacification campaign. Each one is worth a dozen of any other species you'll find here." Marcus studied the imprisoned women with growing unease. They were tall, muscular, with skin tones ranging from deep bronze to pale gold. Intricate tattoos covered their arms and faces, telling stories he couldn't read but somehow understood, spoke of honor, battle, and loss. Their hair was braided with what looked like bones and metal ornaments. Even in captivity, they held themselves like royalty. "That one," the merchant pointed to a corner of the enclosure, "is special. Clan leader's daughter. Real fighter, that one. Killed 3 guards during capture. We've had to keep her sedated most of the time." Marcus followed the merchant's gesture and felt his breath catch. The woman sat apart from the others, her back straight despite the heavy restraints around her wrists and ankles. Her hair was black as space, woven with silver threads that caught the light. Scars crossed her arms and shoulders like medals of honor, but it was her eyes that stopped Marcus cold. Even dulled by whatever drugs they'd used on her, they burned with an intelligence and fury that made him take a step back. She looked directly at him, and Marcus felt like she was seeing straight through his corporate disguise to something deeper. For a moment he forgot where he was, forgot why he was here. All he could think about was how wrong this was, how fundamentally evil it was to cage something so magnificent. "How much?" he heard himself asking. The merchant rubbed his hands together. "She's premium stock. 50,000 credits." Marcus's corporate account could easily cover that amount, but he found himself hesitating. What was he doing? He'd come here to buy workers for the mines, not to rescue anyone. Meridian Corporation expected results, not moral crusades. "She speaks standard?" Marcus asked, trying to rationalize his interest as practical concern. "Oh yes, most of them do. The Amazons are natural linguists. Part of their warrior training, apparently. Know your enemy and all that. The merchant chuckled at his own words, though she hasn't said a word since we brought her in. Stubborn as a neutron star, that one. Marcus walked closer to the containment field. The Amazon woman tracked his movement, her head tilting slightly as if analyzing a potential threat. Up close, he could see the fine details of her tattoos. They weren't random decorations but seemed to tell a story, beginning at her fingertips and spiraling up her arms to disappear beneath the rough prison garment they'd dressed her in. "What's her name?" Marcus asked. "Name?" The merchant laughed. "They're slaves, friend. Give them whatever name you want." Though the manifest lists her as something unpronounceable, starts with a Z sound, I think. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. These were people, beings with histories and cultures and names that mattered. The fact that their captors couldn't even be bothered to learn what they were called spoke volumes about how far humanity had fallen. The woman's eyes narrowed as she studied Marcus, and he had the uncomfortable feeling that she was reading him just as intently as he was watching her. There was something in her gaze that suggested she understood far more about this situation than anyone realized. "I'll take her," Marcus said before he could stop himself. "Excellent choice." The merchant was already pulling out his payment scanner. "Transfer the credits and she's yours. Fair warning, though. We recommend keeping the restraints on for at least the first few weeks. These Amazon types have a tendency to get violent when they wake up somewhere new." As Marcus completed the transaction, transferring more money than most people made in a year, he caught the Amazon woman's eyes one more time. Was that surprise he saw there? Or perhaps the faintest hint of curiosity? He had no idea what he was going to do with her. But he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't leave her here to be sold to someone who would treat her like property. Whatever happened next, at least she'd be away from this place. The transport arrangements would take a few hours to finalize. As Marcus walked away from the market, his new purchase being prepared for shipment, he wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, or taken the first step toward doing something right. The journey to mining station Prometheus took 3 days through hyperspace, and Marcus spent most of that time questioning his sanity. The Amazon warrior remained unconscious in the medical bay, kept sedated by the station's automated systems as per standard protocol for transporting dangerous cargo. Every few hours, Marcus found himself standing outside the sealed chamber, watching her through the observation window. She looked different when sleeping, he realized. The hard lines of anger and defiance had softened, revealing features that spoke of nobility and strength rather than just violence. Her breathing was steady, and occasionally she would murmur something in her native language. Words that sounded like poetry even filtered through the medical bay speakers. Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief medical officer, found him there during his 3rd visit. "Having second thoughts about your purchase?" she asked, not bothering to hide her disapproval. Sarah had made her feelings about the slave trade very clear when Marcus first arrived on Prometheus. "Just making sure she's stable for transport," Marcus lied. "Can't have damaged goods arriving at the mining sites." Sarah studied the readouts on her tablet. "Her physiology is remarkable. Bone density is nearly twice that of baseline humans. Muscle fiber composition suggests strength levels that should be impossible for someone her size, and her brain activity patterns are fascinating. Even sedated, she's showing neural activity that suggests active problem-solving." Problem-solving? It's like she's testing the restraints, measuring the room, cataloging everything around her even while unconscious. "I've never seen anything like it." Sarah looked up from her tablet. "Marcus, whatever you're planning to do with her, be careful. This isn't some broken refugee grateful for rescue. This is a warrior who's calculating her chances of escape and probably planning how to kill everyone on this station." The next morning, Marcus received authorization to wake her up. The process took several hours as the medical system slowly filtered the sedatives from her bloodstream. Marcus waited in the observation area, telling himself he was just being cautious, making sure his investment was sound. When her eyes finally opened, they immediately locked onto the observation window. She couldn't see him through the one-way glass, but somehow Marcus felt like she knew exactly where he was standing. She sat up slowly, testing the restraints that held her to the medical bed. Her movements were precise, economical, telling Marcus that Sarah had been right about her calculating mind. "System. End restraint protocol," Marcus commanded. "Warning, subject classified as extremely dangerous. Recommendation is to maintain full restraints until psychological evaluation is complete." The computer responded in its neutral tone. Override. Authorization Chen 77 Alpha. The restraints retracted with soft mechanical whirs. The Amazon woman sat perfectly still for a long moment, then slowly rubbed her wrists where the restraints had chafed. She looked around the medical bay, taking in every detail, every possible exit, every potential weapon. Marcus activated the intercom. "Can you understand me?" She turned toward the sound of his voice, her head tilting slightly. For a moment he thought she wouldn't respond, but then she spoke in accented standard. "I understand you, human." Her voice was rich and deep, with an accent that made each word sound like it carried more weight than it should. There was no fear in her tone, no submission. If anything, she sounded mildly curious, as if waking up in a strange place was just another puzzle to solve. "I'm Marcus Chen. I'm the one who bought you from the traders on Kepler Station." Bought, she repeated the word like she was tasting something bitter. "And what do you plan to do with your purchase?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He'd expected anger, defiance, maybe attempts at escape. He hadn't expected casual conversation about his intentions. "That depends. On what?" "On you." Marcus found himself being more honest than he'd intended. "I need workers for the asteroid mining operations. People who can handle extreme conditions and operate complex machinery." She stood up from the medical bed, moving with fluid grace despite having been unconscious for days. Even without weapons or armor, she carried herself like a predator. "And you believe I will work willingly for the one who purchased me like livestock?" "I'm hoping we can come to an arrangement that benefits us both." The Amazon woman laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both beautiful and threatening. "Arrangement. Another interesting word choice." She walked to the observation window and pressed her palm against it. "Tell me, Marcus Chen, do you know anything about the Amazon clans of Xerion Prime?" "Only what's in the corporate briefings. Warrior culture, highly organized, resistant to colonization efforts." "Resistant?" She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We have defended our worlds for 3,000 years. We have never surrendered, never submitted, never bowed to any foreign power. The Galactic Coalition calls us terrorists. The Trade Federation labels us pirates, but we call ourselves free." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "And yet here you are." "Here I am," she agreed. "Captured through treachery, sold like cargo, transported to a mining station at the edge of human space, but still free." "I don't understand." She turned away from the window to face the camera she somehow knew was watching her. "Freedom is not a condition of circumstances, Marcus Chen. It is a choice of spirit. You may have purchased my body, but my spirit belongs to the stars of Xerion, and to no other." The medical bay door chimed, indicating someone was requesting entry. Dr. Kim's voice came through the intercom. "Marcus, I need to run some final medical scans before you transfer her to quarters." Acknowledged. Marcus looked back at the Amazon woman.
"What's your name?"
She was quiet for so long that Marcus thought she wouldn't answer. Then just as Dr. Kim entered the medical bay, she spoke. "I am Zarathus of the Silver Star clan, daughter of war leader Cathara, keeper of the third battle song, but you may call me Zara." The name fit her perfectly, Marcus realized. Strong, elegant, with an edge that suggested hidden depths. As Dr. Kim began her examination, Marcus found himself thinking about what Zara had said about freedom being a choice of spirit. He'd bought her to solve a labor problem, but he was beginning to suspect that Zarathus of the Silver Star clan was going to solve problems he didn't even know he had. When the medical examination was complete, Marcus had Zara escorted to guest quarters rather than the standard worker housing. It was a small gesture, but as he watched her take in the space that would be her new home, he saw something shift in her expression. Not gratitude exactly, but perhaps a recalculation of her circumstances. "The door will remain unlocked," Marcus told her. "You're free to move around the station, but there are restricted areas that require security clearance." Zara raised an eyebrow. "No guards? No restraints? No locked cage? Should there be?" She studied him for a long moment, and Marcus had the feeling he was being weighed and measured by standards he couldn't comprehend. "Most interesting, Marcus Chen. Most interesting indeed." As Marcus left her to settle in, he wondered what he had set in motion. Buying Zara had been an impulse decision, driven by disgust at the slave markets and something else he couldn't quite name. But now, looking back at the quarters where she stood watching him leave, he realized that bringing an Amazon warrior to Prometheus Station might change everything. He just wasn't sure if that change would save them all or destroy them. 3 weeks into Zara's stay on Prometheus Station, Marcus realized he had made a fundamental miscalculation. He had expected resistance, defiance, maybe even escape attempts. What he hadn't expected was for an Amazon warrior to become the station's most effective problem solver. It started small. Chief Engineer Rodriguez mentioned that someone had fixed the persistent malfunction in the water recycling system that had been plaguing them for months. The repair was elegant, efficient, and used materials that shouldn't have worked according to standard engineering protocols. Security footage showed Zara working on the system during the night shift, her movements precise and confident. How did she know how to fix it? Rodriguez asked during the morning briefing. That system uses Terran tech, not anything she would have encountered on Xerion Prime. Marcus didn't have an answer. When he asked Zara about it, she simply said, "The machine was in pain. I helped it heal." The way she said it, like it was the most natural thing in the world, made Marcus wonder what else he didn't understand about Amazon culture. The incidents multiplied. A mining drone that had been scheduled for scrapping was found running at peak efficiency. Its programming somehow optimized beyond what the manufacturer had thought possible. The station's defensive grid, which had been operating at 70% capacity due to aging components, suddenly jumped to 95%. Each time, security footage showed Zara working alone, using tools and materials in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Dr. Kim was fascinated. "She's not just fixing things," she explained to Marcus over coffee in the station's small mess hall. "She's improving them. Yesterday I watched her spend 3 hours studying the atmospheric processing unit, then make a single adjustment that increased efficiency by 12%. When I asked her how she knew what to do, she said the machine told her what it needed." "Machines don't talk," Marcus pointed out. "That's what I thought too. But I'm starting to wonder if we're missing something fundamental about how the Amazons interact with technology." Marcus found Zara in the main engineering section, standing before a holographic display showing the station's power grid. She was motionless, her eyes closed, looking for all the world like she was meditating. As he watched, she reached out and made a series of adjustments to the power flow distribution. The hum of the station's engines changed subtly, becoming smoother, more efficient. "How do you do that?" he asked. Zara opened her eyes, unsurprised by his presence. "Do what?" "Fix things you've never seen before. Improve systems that took teams of engineers years to design." She considered the question seriously, as she seemed to consider everything. "On Xerion Prime, we believe that all things have spirit. Machines, weapons, ships, even buildings. To work with them effectively, you must listen to their spirit. Understand what they need to function at their best. That's not how engineering works, isn't it?" Zara gestured to the power grid display. "Your engineers design systems based on mathematical models and theoretical constraints. But every machine is unique once it's built and used. It develops its own patterns, its own preferences, its own way of functioning best. Your people call this quirks or bugs and try to eliminate them. We call it personality and learn to work with it." Marcus stared at the display, watching the smooth flow of power through systems that had been running roughly for months. "That's impossible. And yet the station runs better now than it has in years." Zara's tone was matter-of-fact, not boastful. "Your Dr. Kim has been asking me questions about Amazon technology. She thinks we have some advanced science that explains this ability. Don't you?" Zara smiled, and for the first time since he'd known her, it reached her eyes. "We have something far more powerful than advanced science, Marcus Chen. We have patience, respect, and the wisdom to listen." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert klaxon. Emergency lights bathed the engineering section in red, as automated systems announced a critical failure in the main mining operations life support. The massive asteroid processing facility that supplied raw materials for half the sector was experiencing catastrophic system failures. Marcus ran to the communications center, Zara following silently behind him. The main screen showed Chief Mining Supervisor Janet Torres, her face grim with worry and exhaustion. "We've got problems, Marcus. Big ones. The atmospheric processors on Mining Platform 7 have failed completely. We've got 200 workers trapped down there with maybe 6 hours of emergency oxygen left. What about the backup systems? That's the problem. The backups failed first, then the primaries followed. It's like the whole life support infrastructure decided to die at once." We're trying to get emergency supplies down there, but the nearest rescue ship is 8 hours away. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Platform 7 was their biggest operation, processing the rare earth elements that made Meridian Corporation billions of credits annually. More importantly, it housed the largest contingent of workers in the asteroid belt, including dozens of families with children. "What about repair teams?" Marcus asked. "We've sent 3 different engineering crews down there. None of them can figure out what's wrong. The system failures don't make sense. It's like the machines are shutting down randomly, but there's no pattern, no root cause we can identify." Marcus closed his eyes, trying to think of solutions that didn't exist. The platform's life support systems were incredibly complex, with thousands of interdependent components. Even if they could identify the problem, repairs would take days. "Not hours, I'll go." Marcus turned to see Zara standing behind him, her expression calm but determined. "Absolutely not," Marcus said immediately. "It's too dangerous, and even if it weren't, you don't know those systems." "I know machines," Zara replied simply. "And if what you've told me is true, those machines are dying. Perhaps they need someone who can listen to what they're trying to say." Torres's voice came through the comm. "Marcus, who was that? Did someone just volunteer to go down there?" Marcus looked at Zara, seeing something in her eyes that he was beginning to recognize. It wasn't just confidence or determination. It was the absolute certainty of someone who had never failed at something she had set her mind to do. "Zara, if you're wrong, if you can't fix it, then 200 people die. And I die with them," she said matter-of-factly. "But if your engineers are right and the systems cannot be repaired, then they die anyway. At least this way there is a chance." Marcus realized he was facing one of those moments that would define everything that came after. He could play it safe, follow protocols, and watch 200 people suffocate while waiting for rescue ships that might arrive too late. Or he could trust an Amazon warrior who claimed machines had spirits and could be healed by listening to them. "Torres, prep a fast transport," Marcus said. "I'm sending someone down. Marcus, whatever you're thinking, remember that Platform 7 is a death trap right now. Environmental suits will only last so long in those conditions." "Understood. Prep the transport." As the connection closed, Zara was already moving toward the equipment lockers. "I will need an engineering kit and access to the platform's central computer systems." "Zara," Marcus called after her. "Why are you doing this?" "You don't owe us anything. If anything, we owe you." She paused, looking back at him with those intense eyes that seemed to see everything. "You gave me freedom to move, to work, to be more than property. Perhaps it is time I showed you what an Amazon warrior does with freedom." As she walked away to prepare for what might be a suicide mission, Marcus realized that somewhere along the way, the woman he had bought as a slave had become someone he trusted with the lives of everyone under his command. He just hoped that trust wasn't misplaced. The transport ship bucked and shuddered as it approached mining Platform 7, its hull groaning under the stress of navigating the dense asteroid field. Marcus gripped his safety harness, watching Zara through the cockpit window. She sat perfectly still in the pilot's seat, her hands moving over the controls with an intuitive grace that made the ship seem like an extension of her own body. "I still can't believe you know how to fly," Marcus said through the comm system. "Warriors of the Silver Star clan learn many skills," Zara replied, making a course correction that brought them smoothly alongside the platform's docking bay. "Ships, like all machines, want to fly well. You simply must listen to what they need." Marcus watched her dock the transport with a precision that would have impressed seasoned pilots. The ship settled into the docking clamps with barely a vibration, a feat that should have been impossible given the platform's damaged state and the electromagnetic interference from the surrounding asteroids. Platform 7 was a massive structure, a kilometers-long processing facility built into the hollowed-out remains of a metallic asteroid. Under normal circumstances, it would be bustling with activity, its lights visible across the asteroid field. Now it hung dark and silent except for the emergency beacons flashing red warnings into the void. As they cycled through the airlock, Marcus could immediately sense something wrong. The air felt thick and stale, and there was an underlying vibration in the deck plates that spoke of systems running far outside normal parameters. Emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie red glow. Chief Supervisor Torres met them at the inner airlock, her face haggard with stress and exhaustion. "Thank God you're here. We've lost 3 more processing units in the last hour. At this rate, we'll have complete atmospheric failure in 4 hours, maybe less. Where are the workers? Zara asked, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. Safe zones in the center of the platform. We've sealed off the worst areas and concentrated everyone where the life support is still functioning. But it's not going to last. Zara nodded, already moving toward the nearest maintenance access panel. Show me to the central control systems. As they made their way through the darkened corridors, Marcus began to understand the scope of the crisis. This wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was like the platform itself was dying. Systems that should have been independent of each other were failing in cascade patterns that made no engineering sense. The control center was a chaos of flashing warning lights and alarm sounds. 3 engineering teams huddled around different diagnostic stations, their faces showing the strain of hours spent trying to solve an impossible puzzle. "Status report," Marcus called out. Lead engineer Phillips looked up from his console, his eyes red with fatigue. "It's the damnedest thing, sir. We can fix individual components, but as soon as we repair one system, 2 others fail. It's like the platform is fighting us." Zara moved to the central control console, her hands hovering over the interface without touching it. She closed her eyes, standing motionless for long moments while the crisis continued around her. Marcus found himself holding his breath, acutely aware that 200 lives hung in the balance. "The platform is not fighting you," Zara said finally, her eyes still closed. "It is trying to tell you something." "Machines don't communicate," Phillips said dismissively. "They follow programming protocols, nothing more." Zara opened her eyes and looked directly at him. "This platform has been operating for 15 years. In that time, it has processed millions of tons of ore, survived asteroid impacts, solar flares, and system failures that should have destroyed it. Do you think 15 years of continuous operation leaves no mark on its systems?" She moved to different stations around the control room, touching interfaces and studying readouts with an intensity that made Marcus think of a doctor examining a patient. "Your automated systems are fighting each other. The atmospheric processors are trying to increase oxygen production, but the power grid is limiting energy flow to prevent overload. The waste recycling systems are backing up because the processing units can't keep pace with demand. Each system is functioning correctly according to its individual parameters, but they're not working together anymore." "That's impossible," Phillips insisted. "The integration protocols ensure system coordination. They can't just stop working together." "They can if something has changed the fundamental balance," Zara replied. She accessed a diagnostic panel and her eyes widened slightly. "When did you last update the central processing core?" Torres and Phillips exchanged glances. 3 weeks ago, Torres admitted. "Standard efficiency upgrade from corporate headquarters. Show me the upgrade specifications." As Phillips pulled up the technical documentation, Zara studied the changes with growing understanding. "Here," she said, pointing to a series of modifications. These changes optimized individual system performance by increasing processing speed and reducing redundancy checks. "Right. It improved efficiency by 12% across all systems," Phillips said proudly, "and eliminated the communication protocols that allowed the systems to coordinate with each other," Zara concluded. "You made each system faster and more efficient, but you broke their ability to work as a unified whole." The control room fell silent except for the constant alarms. Marcus felt a chill as he realized the implications. "You're saying the platform is dying because we made it too efficient?" "I'm saying the platform is dying because you treated it like a collection of independent machines instead of a living ecosystem," Zara corrected. "On Zarian Prime, we have cities that are thousands of years old. They function because every system, every building, every component is designed to work in harmony with every other part. When you optimize one element without considering its relationship to the whole, you create imbalance. So how do we fix it?" Torres asked desperately. Zara was already moving back to the central console. "We restore the balance, but not by reversing the upgrades. We need to teach the systems how to communicate with each other again. What happened next would be talked about in engineering circles for years to come." Zara began making adjustments to the platform systems, not through standard diagnostic procedures or repair protocols, but through what could only be described as intuitive understanding. She seemed to sense the flow of data through the network, the stress patterns in the mechanical systems, the subtle harmonics that indicated optimal function. She worked for 3 hours straight, her hands moving across interfaces with increasing confidence. Marcus watched the system displays as error messages began disappearing one by one. The cascade failures stopped. Emergency power flow stabilized. The atmospheric processors began working in concert with the power grid instead of fighting it. Impossible, Phillips whispered, staring at his readouts. She's not fixing individual components. She's rewriting the integration protocols in real time, creating new communication pathways between systems that were never designed to interface directly. The systems want to work together, Zara explained without looking up from her work. They were designed to be part of a greater whole. The efficiency upgrades broke those connections, but the potential for harmony was always there. I'm simply helping them remember how to talk to each other. As the 4th hour approached, something remarkable happened. The platform's systems began optimizing themselves, finding new ways to coordinate that exceeded even their original efficiency ratings. The atmospheric processors stabilized at 105% of normal function. Power distribution became smoother and more responsive than it had ever been. Even the mining equipment began operating with a precision that amazed the supervisors. Life support is fully restored, Torres announced, her voice filled with amazement. All workers are safe and we're reading optimal function across all systems. Marcus looked at Zara, who was finally stepping back from the control console. She looked tired but satisfied, like someone who had just completed a difficult but worthwhile task. How did you know? He asked. How did you know what to do? Zara considered the question seriously. Because I listened. Your engineers were trying to force the systems to work according to their preconceptions of how machines should function. But machines, like all things, develop their own nature over time. To heal them, you must understand what they have become, not what they were designed to be. As they prepared to return to Prometheus Station, Marcus realized that Zara had done something far more significant than save 200 lives. She had demonstrated a completely different way of understanding technology, one that treated machines not as tools to be controlled, but as partners to be understood. The implications of that shift would change everything he thought he knew about engineering, about technology, and about the woman he had bought as a slave but who was teaching him what it meant to be truly free. Word of what happened at Platform 7 spread through the mining sector like wildfire. Within a week, Marcus was fielding calls from corporate executives, engineering firms, and even military contractors, all wanting to know about the Amazon technical specialist who had accomplished the impossible. Zara herself seemed uninterested in the attention, spending her time exploring Prometheus Station and making subtle improvements to systems that had been running suboptimally for years. Marcus found her in the hydroponics bay, kneeling beside a section of growing beds that had been producing poorly. Despite the best efforts of the agricultural technicians, she had her hands in the soil, her eyes closed, looking for all the world like she was having a conversation with the plants themselves. The vegetables are talking to you too? Marcus asked, trying to keep his tone light. Zara opened her eyes and smiled. Everything talks, Marcus Chen, plants, machines, stars. The question is whether you listen. She stood and brushed the soil from her hands. Around her, the plants that had been struggling looked visibly healthier, their leaves greener and more vibrant than they had been in months. I need to ask you something, Marcus said, settling onto a bench beside the growing beds. Meridian Corporation wants to offer you a position as a systems integration specialist. Full citizenship, high salary, your own research team. They're calling it the opportunity of a lifetime. Zara was quiet for a long moment, her attention focused on a flowering vine that was climbing up a support trellis. And what do you think of this opportunity? Honestly, I think they want to study you. Figure out how you do what you do and turn it into something they can patent and sell. Ah, Zara's tone suggested she wasn't surprised. And if I refuse? Marcus had been dreading this part of the conversation. Your legal status is still complicated. Technically, you're still classified as purchased property. If you refuse corporate employment, they could reassign you to someone else, someone who might not be as understanding about your freedom of movement. The words hung heavy in the air between them. Marcus had grown to respect Zara, to value her insights and her company, but the legal realities hadn't changed. In the eyes of the law, she was still a slave, and he was still her owner. So my choices are to become a willing tool of your corporation, or to be sold to someone who will force me to be their unwilling tool, Zara observed. There might be another option, Marcus said carefully. I've been researching the legal precedents for manumission in the outer territories. If certain conditions are met, it's possible to grant legal freedom to purchased individuals. Zara's expression sharpened with interest. What conditions? Demonstrated exceptional service to colonial interests, evidence of integration into human society, and formal sponsorship by a citizen in good standing. Marcus paused. I could sponsor your manumission application. Why would you do that? It was a question Marcus had been asking himself for weeks. Because what we did to your people was wrong. Because slavery is wrong, regardless of the legal frameworks that support it, because you deserve to be free. Zara studied his face for a long moment, her dark eyes searching for deception or hidden motives. And what would you want in return? Nothing, Marcus said firmly. Your freedom wouldn't be conditional on anything. That is either very noble or very naive, Zara said with a slight smile. In my experience, humans rarely give up valuable assets without expecting something in return. Then maybe it's time you met some different humans. Before Zara could respond, Marcus's communication device chimed with an urgent priority message. The holographic display showed Admiral Catherine Reeves of the Colonial Defense Force, her expression grim. Mr. Chen, we have a situation developing that requires immediate attention. Long-range sensors have detected a Kethmoran raiding fleet approaching the asteroid belt. Estimated arrival in 18 hours. Marcus felt his blood run cold. The Kethmoran were one of the most aggressive species in the sector, known for their brutal raids on mining operations and their practice of taking entire populations as slaves. Their ships were fast, heavily armed, and typically operated in coordinated wolf packs that could overwhelm even well-defended positions. What's their projected target? Marcus asked. Unknown, but based on their approach vector, they could hit any of the major mining platforms. We're evacuating civilian populations from the outer stations, but Prometheus and the core platforms are too strategically important to abandon. What about fleet support? Admiral Reeves shook her head. The nearest battle group is 6 days away. You'll have to hold out with whatever defenses you have available. As the communication ended, Marcus turned to find Zara standing perfectly still, her face pale with what looked like recognition. You know something about the Kethmoran, Marcus observed. They were the ones who captured me, Zara said quietly. They attacked a Silver Star Clan outpost, killed the defenders and sold the survivors to human traders. The Kethmoran don't take prisoners for ransom. They take them for profit. Marcus studied the tactical displays that were automatically updating with the latest sensor data. Prometheus Station had defensive capabilities, but they were designed to deter pirates and raiders, not a full Kethmoran battle fleet. The mining platforms were even more vulnerable, with minimal defensive systems and no military support. We need to evacuate the platforms, Marcus said, already calculating the logistics. Emergency transports, skeleton crews only. Abandon everything that isn't human. No. Marcus turned to look at Zara, surprised by the firmness in her voice. If you abandon the platforms, the Kethmoran will claim them, she continued. They'll use your own facilities to establish a permanent base in this sector. Within a year, they'll control every mining operation in the belt. Better than losing hundreds of lives defending them, is it? Zara moved to the tactical display, studying the incoming fleet formations with the eye of someone who had fought these enemies before. The Kethmoran respect strength above all else. If you run from them once, they'll never stop hunting you. But if you hurt them badly enough, they'll find easier prey elsewhere. Marcus stared at the display showing 6 heavily armed Kethmoran vessels against Prometheus Station's limited defenses. It's suicide. We don't have the firepower to stop them. You don't, Zara agreed. But I might. What are you talking about? Zara was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the tactical display as if she was solving a complex puzzle. The Amazon clans have been fighting the Kethmoran for generations. We know their tactics, their weaknesses, their blind spots. More importantly, I know how to turn your mining equipment into weapons they won't expect. Mining equipment isn't military hardware. Everything is a weapon if you know how to use it, Zara said with the confidence of someone who had proven that philosophy in battle. Your asteroid processing lasers, your gravity manipulators, your automated mining drones. In the right configuration coordinated properly, they could do significant damage to Kethmoran ships. Marcus looked at the tactical display again, trying to see it through Zara's eyes. It's still suicide. Even if we could improvise effective weapons, we don't have the training or coordination to use them effectively. You don't, Zara repeated. But I do. The implications of what she was suggesting slowly dawned on Marcus. You're talking about taking command of the defense. I'm talking about saving your people the way you could have saved mine if you had arrived earlier, Zara said simply. The Catamaran destroyed my clan, enslaved my people, and sold me to traders who treated me like property. Now they're coming for your people, and I have the chance to stop them. Marcus realized he was facing another of those moments that would define everything that came after. He could evacuate the platforms and hope the Colonial Defense Force arrived in time to reclaim them. Or he could trust an Amazon warrior to defend human lives with improvised weapons and tactics that existed only in her mind. If we do this, if we stay and fight, there's no guarantee we'll survive, Marcus warned. There are no guarantees in war, Zara replied. But I'd rather die fighting for something I believe in than live knowing I ran from those who destroyed my family. As alarms began sounding throughout the station, announcing the approaching threat, Marcus made his decision. What do you need? Zara's smile was fierce and determined. Give me complete access to all mining systems, authority to coordinate defense operations, and 18 hours to turn your industrial equipment into a weapon of war. Done, Marcus said without hesitation. But Zara, yes? After this is over, regardless of what happens, you're free. I'll make sure the manumission papers are filed before the fighting starts. Zara looked at him for a long moment, and Marcus saw something shift in her expression. Not gratitude exactly, but a recognition of trust freely given and received. Then let's make sure we both survive to see that freedom honored, she said, already moving toward the command center with the purposeful stride of a warrior going to war. The transformation of Prometheus Station from a mining facility into a fortress took place with a speed and efficiency that amazed everyone involved. Zara worked with an intensity that bordered on supernatural, her hands flying over control interfaces as she coordinated modifications across dozens of platforms simultaneously. Marcus watched from the command center as asteroid processing lasers were recalibrated for long-range targeting. Gravity manipulators were repositioned to create defensive fields, and mining drones were reprogrammed with combat protocols that shouldn't have existed. What impressed him most wasn't the technical complexity of the modifications, but the way Zara seemed to understand exactly how each piece of equipment could be optimized for warfare. Status report, Marcus called out as the 18-hour deadline approached. Chief Engineer Rodriguez looked up from his station, his face showing a mixture of exhaustion and amazement. She's done things I didn't think were possible. The main processing laser array is now capable of focused beam attacks at ranges that exceed military specifications. The gravity manipulators can create localized distortion fields that will interfere with ship navigation and targeting systems. What about the mining drones? Completely reconfigured. They're now carrying improvised explosive charges and programmed to operate in coordinated swarm tactics. If the Catamaran get close enough, they'll face hundreds of autonomous attack units. Dr. Kim approached Marcus with a tablet full of data. I've been monitoring Zara's neural activity while she works. Her brain patterns are unlike anything I've ever seen. It's like she's processing information from multiple sources simultaneously, maintaining awareness of dozens of different systems at once. Marcus glanced across the command center to where Zara stood before the main tactical display, her eyes closed as she made final adjustments to the defensive grid. Even at rest, she radiated an aura of controlled power that made everyone around her move with greater purpose and confidence. Incoming transmission, Communications Officer Park announced. It's the Catamaran Fleet Commander. The main screen activated, showing the bridge of a Catamaran warship. The alien commander was an imposing figure, nearly 3 meters tall with armor that seemed to be fused directly to his exoskeleton. His multiple eyes glowed with predatory intelligence as he studied the human command center. I am War Leader Thaskvin of the Blood Moon Clan, the alien announced in heavily accented standard. You will surrender your mining facilities and submit to processing. Resistance will result in the death of all organic assets. Marcus stepped forward, trying to project more confidence than he felt. This is Marcus Chen, Administrator of Prometheus Station. This sector is under Colonial Defense Force protection. Any aggressive action will be considered an act of war. Thaskvin's mandibles clicked in what Marcus assumed was laughter. Your nearest military support is days away, human. We have studied your defenses. Mining lasers and industrial equipment pose no threat to Catamaran warships. Perhaps you should reconsider that assessment. Everyone in the command center turned as Zara stepped into view of the communication array. The effect on the Kethmaran commander was immediate and dramatic. His multiple eyes focused on her with shock and recognition. "Amazon," Thaskovan hissed, his tone shifting from dismissive to wary. "The Silver Star clan was destroyed. Their warriors were sold into slavery." "One warrior stands free," Zara replied, her voice carrying an authority that filled the command center. "And she remembers the Blood Moon clan's cowardice at the Battle of Zarian's Ring." The Kethmaran commander's armor plates flared in what Marcus recognized as a threat display. "You died with your clan, Amazon. What I see before me is merely a ghost." "Then prepare to be haunted." Zara cut the communication with a gesture, leaving the command center in tense silence. Marcus could see the effect her words had on both the human crew and the alien commander. There was something about the way she spoke, the absolute confidence in her voice, that made everyone believe she could do exactly what she promised. "Long-range sensors show the Kethmaran fleet accelerating toward us," Sensor Operator Chen reported. "Estimated arrival in 30 minutes. All platforms. Report readiness status," Zara commanded. Taking position at the tactical control station, one by one, the mining platforms checked in, their voices tight with nervous energy but determined. Platform 7, still grateful for their rescue weeks earlier, reported full combat readiness. Platform 2 announced that their mining lasers were calibrated and targeting systems were online. Even the smaller facilities that normally operated with skeleton crews had positioned themselves for optimal defensive firing angles. Prometheus Station defensive grid is at full operational status, Rodriguez announced. All systems are green and responding to central coordination. Marcus watched the tactical display as the Kethmoran fleet approached, 6 large warships in a classic hunter formation. According to the sensor data, each ship outgunned Prometheus Station individually. Together they represented overwhelming firepower against improvised defenses. "Contact in 15 minutes, Park reported. They're not responding to communication attempts." Zara studied the approaching formation with the intensity of a predator sizing up prey. "They're using standard Kethmaran Wolfpack tactics. 2 lead ships will engage our primary defenses, while the others circle to attack from multiple angles. They expect us to focus our fire on the obvious threats while the flanking ships destroy our platforms." "How do we counter that?" Marcus asked. "We don't counter it," Zara said with a slight smile. "We use it." What happened next would be studied in military academies for decades to come. As the Kethmoran ships approached optimal weapons range, Zara didn't order the defensive platforms to engage. Instead, she waited, allowing the alien fleet to arrange themselves exactly as she had predicted. "They're targeting Platform 7, Sensor Operator Chen reported, as the lead Kethmaran ships opened fire. Platform 7. "Evasive maneuvers," Zara ordered calmly. "All platforms implement defensive pattern Zarian on my mark." Marcus watched in amazement as the mining platforms began moving in perfect coordination, using their gravity manipulators not just for defense but for mobility. Platform 7, despite being under heavy fire, danced through the alien weapons fire with grace that shouldn't have been possible for an industrial facility. "Now," Zara said quietly. The asteroid belt exploded into action. Mining lasers, recalibrated for maximum power, lanced out from unexpected angles as platforms that had appeared to be retreating suddenly revealed themselves to be in perfect firing positions. The Kethmoran ships, committed to their attack runs, found themselves caught in a crossfire that exploited every blind spot and vulnerability in their formation. The lead Kethmaran ship took a direct hit from Platform 7's main laser array, the industrial beam burning through military-grade armor like paper. Explosions rippled along its hull as critical systems failed. "Impossible." Thaskovan's voice came through the communication array as his ship reeled from the unexpected assault. "Mining equipment cannot penetrate our defenses." "Your arrogance is your weakness," Zara replied, coordinating a second wave of attacks that caught the flanking ships as they tried to reposition. "You assumed humans would fight like humans, but today they fight like Amazons." The battle that followed was brief but decisive. The Kethmaran ships, designed to overwhelm static defenses, found themselves outmaneuvered by mobile platforms using tactics that no military database had ever recorded. Mining drones swarmed the alien vessels in coordinated attacks that exploited blind spots and overwhelmed point defense systems. Within an hour, 4 of the 6 Kethmaran ships were either destroyed or crippled beyond combat effectiveness. The surviving vessels, including Thaskovan's flagship, were in full retreat, their sensors undoubtedly recording data about defensive capabilities that would make future raids in this sector far less attractive. All platforms, report status, Marcus called out as the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace. One by one, the platforms checked in. There had been damage, some casualties, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. More importantly, the strategic victory was complete. The Kethamoran had been not just defeated, but humiliated. Their reputation for invincibility, shattered by mining equipment in the hands of someone who understood both warfare and technology. As the immediate crisis passed, Marcus found himself looking at Zara with new understanding. She wasn't just an Amazon warrior or a technical specialist. She was someone who had taken the tools available to her and transformed them into something greater than the sum of their parts. "How did you know it would work?" Marcus asked as the command center began returning to normal operations. Zara considered the question seriously. "Because I listened to what the machines wanted to become. Your platforms, your equipment, they were designed for construction and creation, but with the right coordination, the right understanding of their true capabilities, they could also be used for protection and defense. And the tactics? Amazon warriors learn that every battle is won or lost before the first shot is fired. Victory comes from understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves, and using their expectations against them." Zara smiled. The Kethmaran expected to fight mining equipment. Instead, the transformation of Prometheus Station from a mining facility into a fortress took place with a speed and efficiency that amazed everyone involved. Zara worked with an intensity that bordered on supernatural, her hands flying over control interfaces as she coordinated modifications across dozens of platforms simultaneously. Marcus watched from the command center as asteroid processing lasers were recalibrated for long-range targeting, gravity manipulators were repositioned to create defensive fields, and mining drones were reprogrammed with combat protocols that shouldn't have existed. What impressed him most wasn't the technical complexity of the modifications, but the way Zara seemed to understand exactly how each piece of equipment could be optimized for warfare. "Status report," Marcus called out as the 18-hour deadline approached. Chief Engineer Rodriguez looked up from his station, his face showing a mixture of exhaustion and amazement. "She's done things I didn't think were possible. The main processing laser array is now capable of focused beam attacks at ranges that exceed military specifications. The gravity manipulators can create localized distortion fields that will interfere with ship navigation and targeting systems. What about the mining drones? Completely reconfigured. They're now carrying improvised explosive charges and programmed to operate in coordinated swarm tactics. If the Kethmaran get close enough, they'll face hundreds of autonomous attack units." Dr. Kim approached Marcus with a tablet full of data. "I've been monitoring Zara's neural activity while she works. Her brain patterns are unlike anything I've ever seen. It's like she's processing information from multiple sources simultaneously, maintaining awareness of dozens of different systems at once." Marcus glanced across the command center to where Zara stood before the main tactical display. Her eyes closed as she made final adjustments to the defensive grid. Even at rest, she radiated an aura of controlled power that made everyone around her move with greater purpose and confidence. "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Park announced. "It's the Kethmaran Fleet Commander." The main screen activated, showing the bridge of a Kethmaran warship. The alien commander was an imposing figure, nearly 3 meters tall with armor that seemed to be fused directly to his exoskeleton. His multiple eyes glowed with predatory intelligence as he studied the human command center. "I am War Leader Thaskvan of the Blood Moon clan," the alien announced in heavily accented standard. "You will surrender your mining facilities and submit to processing. Resistance will result in the death of all organic assets." Marcus stepped forward, trying to project more confidence than he felt. "This is Marcus Chen, Administrator of Prometheus Station. This sector is under Colonial Defense Force protection. Any aggressive action will be considered an act of war." Thaskvan's mandibles clicked in what Marcus assumed was laughter. "Your nearest military support is days away, human. We have studied your defenses. Mining lasers and industrial equipment pose no threat to Kethmaran warships. Perhaps you should reconsider that assessment." Everyone in the command center turned. as Zara stepped into view of the communication array. The effect on the Kethmoran commander was immediate and dramatic. His multiple eyes focused on her with shock and recognition. "Amazon," Thaskovan hissed, his tone shifting from dismissive to wary. "The Silver Star clan was destroyed. Their warriors were sold into slavery. One warrior stands free," Zara replied, her voice carrying an authority that filled the command center. "And she remembers the Blood Moon clan's cowardice at the Battle of Zyrion's Ring." The Kethmoran commander's armor plates flared in what Marcus recognized as a threat display. "You died with your clan, Amazon. What I see before me is merely a ghost. Then prepare to be haunted." Zara cut the communication with a gesture, leaving the command center in tense silence. Marcus could see the effect her words had on both the human crew and the alien commander. There was something about the way she spoke, the absolute confidence in her voice, that made everyone believe she could do exactly what she promised. "Long-range sensors show the Kethmoran fleet accelerating toward us," Sensor Operator Chen reported. "Estimated arrival in 30 minutes. All platforms. Report readiness status," Zara commanded, taking position at the tactical control station. One by one, the mining platforms checked in, their voices tight with nervous energy but determined. Platform 7, still grateful for their rescue weeks earlier, reported full combat readiness. Platform 2 announced that their mining lasers were calibrated and targeting systems were online. Even the smaller facilities that normally operated with skeleton crews had positioned themselves for optimal defensive firing angles. Prometheus Station defensive grid is at full operational status, Rodriguez announced. "All systems are green and responding to central coordination." Marcus watched the tactical display as the Kethmoran fleet approached, 6 large warships in a classic hunter formation. According to the sensor data, each ship outgunned Prometheus Station individually. Together they represented overwhelming firepower against improvised defenses. "Contact in 15 minutes, Park reported. "They're not responding to communication attempts." Zara studied the approaching formation with the intensity of a predator sizing up prey. "They're using standard Kethmoran Wolfpack tactics. 2 lead ships will engage our primary defenses while the others circle to attack from multiple angles. They expect us to focus our fire on the obvious threats while the flanking ships destroy our platforms." "How do we counter that?" Marcus asked. "We don't counter it," Zara said with a slight smile. "We use it." What happened next would be studied in military academies for decades to come. As the Kethmoran ships approached optimal weapons range, Zara didn't order the defensive platforms to engage. Instead, she waited, allowing the alien fleet to arrange themselves exactly as she had predicted. "They're targeting Platform 7, Sensor Operator Chen reported as the lead Kethmoran ships opened fire. "Platform 7, evasive maneuvers," Zara ordered calmly. "All platforms implement defensive pattern Zirion on my mark." Marcus watched in amazement as the mining platforms began moving in perfect coordination, using their gravity manipulators not just for defense but for mobility. Platform 7, despite being under heavy fire, danced through the alien weapons fire with grace that shouldn't have been possible for an industrial facility. "Now," Zara said quietly, the asteroid belt exploded into action. Mining lasers, recalibrated for maximum power, lanced out from unexpected angles as platforms that had appeared to be retreating suddenly revealed themselves to be in perfect firing positions. The Kethmoran ships, committed to their attack runs, found themselves caught in a crossfire that exploited every blind spot and vulnerability in their formation. The lead Kethmoran ship took a direct hit from Platform 7's main laser array, the industrial beam burning through military-grade armor like paper. Explosions rippled along its hull as critical systems failed. "Impossible," Thaskovan's voice came through the communication array as his ship reeled from the unexpected assault. "Mining equipment cannot penetrate our defenses." "Your arrogance is your weakness," Zara replied, coordinating a second wave of attacks that caught the flanking ships as they tried to reposition. "You assumed humans would fight like humans, but today they fight like Amazons." The battle that followed was brief but decisive. The Kethmoran ships, designed to overwhelm static defenses, found themselves outmaneuvered by mobile platforms using tactics that no military database had ever recorded. Mining drones swarmed the alien vessels in coordinated attacks that exploited blind spots and overwhelmed point defense systems. Within an hour, 4 of the 6 Kethmoran ships were either destroyed or crippled beyond combat effectiveness. The surviving vessels, including Thaskovan's flagship, were in full retreat, their sensors undoubtedly recording data about defensive capabilities that would make future raids in this sector far less attractive. All platforms, report status, Marcus called out as the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace. One by one, the platforms checked in. There had been damage, some casualties, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. More importantly, the strategic victory was complete. The Kethamoran had been not just defeated but humiliated, their reputation for invincibility shattered by mining equipment in the hands of someone who understood both warfare and technology. As the immediate crisis passed, Marcus found himself looking at Zara with new understanding. She wasn't just an Amazon warrior or a technical specialist. She was someone who had taken the tools available to her and transformed them into something greater than the sum of their parts. "How did you know it would work?" Marcus asked as the command center began returning to normal operations. Zara considered the question seriously. "Because I listened to what the machines wanted to become. Your platforms, your equipment. They were designed for construction and creation, but with the right coordination, the right understanding of their true capabilities, they could also be used for protection and defense. And the tactics? Amazon warriors learn that every battle is won or lost before the first shot is fired. Victory comes from understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves, and using their expectations against them." Zara smiled. The Kethmoran expected to fight mining equipment. Instead, they fought the spirit of Xerion Prime channeled through human technology. As reports came in from across the sector, Marcus realized that what had happened here would change everything. The successful defense of Prometheus Station would inspire other colonies, demonstrate new possibilities for civilian defense, and most importantly, prove that freedom was worth fighting for. But more than that, it had shown him what Zara truly was. Not a slave who had been freed, but a free spirit who had never been truly enslaved, waiting for the moment when she could show the galaxy what Amazon warriors were truly capable of, when they chose to fight not for conquest, but for protection. 6 months after the Battle of Prometheus Station, Marcus stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Xerion Memorial Complex, watching ships from across the galaxy arrive for the dedication ceremony. The memorial honored not just the Amazon warriors who had died defending their homeworld, but all beings who had lost their lives to the slave trade that had poisoned interstellar relations for too long. The complex itself was a marvel of engineering, designed using principles that Zara had developed during her time on Prometheus. Every system worked in harmony with every other, creating a living ecosystem of technology that adapted and evolved to meet changing needs. It was more than just a memorial. It was a statement about what could be accomplished when different cultures learned from each other instead of trying to dominate one another. The Colonial Senate has officially ratified the Anti-Slavery Accord, Dr. Kim announced as she joined Marcus at the observation window. 23 star systems have committed to ending the practice of sentient being trafficking within their territories. Marcus nodded, watching a sleek Amazon courier ship dock with the station. Any word on the Kethmoran response? They've withdrawn from 3 sectors and ceased all raiding operations in colonial space. Apparently, word of their defeat here has spread through their military hierarchy. They're calling it the day the stars fell silent. The Battle of Prometheus had indeed become legendary, not just for its tactical brilliance but for what it represented. For the first time in decades, a purely defensive action had achieved complete strategic victory through superior understanding rather than superior firepower. Military academies across human space were now teaching courses on Amazon integration tactics, though none had successfully replicated Zara's intuitive approach to technology. "Where is she now?" Dr. Kim asked, though Marcus suspected she already knew the answer. "Engineering Section 7, working on the new hyperspace communication array. She says the subspace resonance patterns aren't harmonizing properly with the station's bioneural network." Marcus had stopped being surprised by Zara's technical innovations months ago. Her integration of biological and mechanical systems had created communication networks that operated faster and more efficiently than anything previously imagined. The fact that she described complex quantum mechanics in terms of harmony and cooperation no longer seemed strange. It had simply become the way things worked when Zara was involved. The door chimed and Zara herself entered the observation deck. She had changed during her time on Prometheus, Marcus realized. She still carried herself with the bearing of a warrior, but there was something else now, a sense of purpose that went beyond survival or revenge. She wore clothes of her own choosing now, a blend of Amazon traditional designs and practical station wear that somehow managed to look both elegant and functional. The dedication ceremony is beginning soon, Marcus reminded her. I know. Zara moved to the observation window looking out at the gathering ships. Representatives from 17 Amazon clans have arrived. They want to meet the warrior who survived the destruction of the Silver Star clan. And I'm not sure what to tell them. Zara's tone was thoughtful rather than troubled. I am no longer the person I was when I was captured. The experiences I've had here, the things I've learned, the way I've grown, I am something new. Marcus understood. The woman who had been sold as a slave on Kepler Station was gone, replaced by someone who had integrated the best of both Amazon wisdom and human innovation. Zara had become a bridge between cultures, a living example of what was possible when different species chose cooperation over conflict. The Senate has formally offered you citizenship and a position as Director of Interspecies Technical Cooperation, Marcus said. Full autonomy, unlimited research budget, your own department. I know. Admiral Reeves delivered the offer personally. Zara smiled slightly. She also mentioned that you recommended me for the position. You're the best person for the job. Probably the only person who could do it successfully. Zara was quiet for a moment, watching an Amazon cargo vessel maneuver toward the docking bay with the fluid grace that characterized all their technology. And what about you, Marcus Chen? What will you do now that Prometheus Station runs itself and the mining operations have been fully automated? It was a question Marcus had been avoiding for weeks. The success of Zara's innovations had made his original job obsolete. The platforms now operated with an efficiency that exceeded human management capabilities, and the defense system she had created ensured that the mining operations would remain secure for the foreseeable future. I've been offered a position with the Colonial Diplomatic Corps, Marcus admitted. They want me to head up a new department focused on cultural integration and conflict resolution. Ah, Zara's tone suggested she understood the implications. Working with newly contacted species, helping to prevent future conflicts like the ones that led to slavery and exploitation. The idea is to establish trade, relationships, and territorial agreements before misunderstandings lead to war. Marcus paused. The position would require extensive travel, probably years spent in the outer sectors where first contact situations are most likely. And you're worried about leaving the work we've started here unfinished. Marcus looked at her in surprise. How did you know? Because I've been watching you for months, learning to read human expressions the way I read machine systems. You care about this place, about the people here, about the principles we've fought to establish. The idea of abandoning that responsibility troubles you. She was right, Marcus realized. Somewhere along the way, Prometheus Station had become more than just an assignment. It had become a home, a community, a place where he had discovered what it meant to stand for something larger than corporate profits or personal advancement. There is another option, Zara said carefully, which is, we could work together. The Interspecies Technical Cooperation Department would need diplomatic liaisons, people who understand both the technical and cultural aspects of integration. People who have proven they can build bridges between different ways of thinking. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership, Zara corrected. The chance to continue what we started here on a galactic scale. Teaching different species to work together instead of exploiting each other, showing them that cooperation creates better results than domination. The dedication ceremony was beginning in the main assembly hall, but Marcus found himself reluctant to leave the observation deck. The view of ships from dozens of different species, all gathered to honor the victims of slavery and celebrate the principles of freedom and cooperation, represented everything they had worked toward. I accept, Marcus said simply. Zara smiled, and Marcus was struck again by how much she had changed from the angry, defiant warrior he had first met. Freedom had allowed her to become not just herself, but the best version of herself, someone who could use her strength to protect rather than simply to survive. Good, she said, because I've already submitted your name to the Senate as my recommended deputy director. Marcus laughed. realizing that once again Zara had been several steps ahead of everyone else. "You were that confident I'd say yes?" "I was that confident you'd make the right choice," Zara corrected. "You've been making the right choices since the day you decided to treat me as a person instead of property." As they made their way to the dedication ceremony, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. He had bought a warrior slave thinking he was solving a labor problem. Instead, he had found a partner who had taught him that freedom wasn't something you could grant to someone else. It was something you had to recognize had always existed, waiting for the right moment to shine. The ceremony itself was moving, with speakers from across the galaxy sharing stories of loss and hope, of cultures learning to work together despite their differences. When Zara took the podium to speak about the Amazon perspective on freedom and cooperation, Marcus felt a deep sense of pride in what they had accomplished together. But it was afterward, during the reception, that Marcus truly understood the impact of their work. He watched Zara move through the crowd, speaking with representatives from species that had been enemies for generations, finding common ground through shared technical challenges and cooperative solutions. She had become what he had always suspected she could be, not just a free Amazon warrior, but a leader who could help others find their own freedom. As the evening wound down and the last ships departed for their home systems, Marcus and Zara found themselves back in the observation deck, looking out at the stars that held so much promise and so many challenges. "Ready for the next adventure?" Zara asked. Marcus smiled, thinking about all the species they would meet, all the conflicts they might help resolve, all the bridges they could build between different ways of understanding the universe. "Ready," he said, and meant it, Tilai. Outside the observation window, the stars burned with the light of infinite possibilities, and somewhere among them, other beings were learning what it meant to be truly free. The work they had started on Prometheus Station was spreading across the galaxy, one world at a time, one species at a time, one choice at a time. It was, Marcus realized, exactly the kind of future worth fighting for.